In the last section, we put together our entire action creator to fetch a list of posts from our API. Now keep in mind that at this point in time, we very likely don't have any posts stored on the API. So if we made this request right now, I would probably expect to see an empty array come back. So just keep that in mind for when we first go to test this thing out inside the browser. Once we start to add in the functionality to add a new post to our API, well then things are going to be a little bit more lively inside of our application. So let's now continue on the Redux side of things by working on our reducer, which is going to store, or I should say produce, the post piece of state. Now again, I want to just remind you one last time, our goal here inside this reducer is to return an object that contains the ID of every post as the key, and then the value will be the actual post itself. Now this is going to be a little bit awkward because as we spoke about just a little bit ago, the API that we're working with returns a list of posts in an array. So we're clearly going to have to do a little bit of a transformation step in here, but I assure you it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. Okay, so let's get started on our reducer. I'm going to start off by opening up the index.js file inside of the reducers directory. So inside of here, we've got a dummy piece of state, or I should say a dummy reducer right now. So we can remove this whole line that's in here. Let's just take the entire thing out. Next, we'll import the reducer that we're about to create. So we haven't made it yet, but we're just going to assume that we're going to have it all put together in just a second. So we'll import posts reducer from reducer posts. And then we'll assign that to the posts piece of state inside of the combine reducers call. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now we can create the reducer post file and start putting that thing together. So inside the reducers directory, we'll make the reducer posts.js file. We'll immediately start off by importing our type of fetch posts from the actions file. So let's import fetch posts from up1 directory into actions, and then we don't really need to specify any file in there because we're importing from the index.js file. Next, we'll put together some boilerplate inside of our reducer itself and export it immediately. So we'll say export default function. This function is going to receive the previous state, an action, and then we have to essentially do something with it inside of here. So we'll put in our switch statement to switch over the action type. We'll immediately catch the default case, in which case we'll return the state object. We'll also add in our case for handling the incoming list of posts as well. And then the last thing I want to take care of before we talk about what we're going to do inside this case is I want to think about our initial state object, or what we're going to default our state object to the very first time this thing runs. And so we're saying that we're going to store our list of posts inside of an object. So I'm going to say, okay, we will default our state to be an object. No problem. Okay, so at this point in time, if we were to console log action.response, or excuse me, action.payload.data, I would expect this to be an array of posts. So like post 1, post 2. But we need to somehow coerce this thing or transform it into an object where the ID is the post ID, and then the value is the actual post itself. So you might be thinking that we'll use like a for loop here or do some fancy transformation or something like that. Well, in practice, we're actually just going to use the Lodash module instead, the Lodash library. The Lodash library has a method on it that assumes that you want to do basically exactly this operation right here. Essentially, take an array of records, take one property out of each record, and create an object out of that. So to give you a really good idea of how this Lodash function is going to work and how it's going to just exactly solve this problem for us, I want to test out the code for it first and just kind of demo it inside the browser just to make sure that it's really clear exactly what it's doing. So I'm going to flip on over to the browser, and we're going to make use of a little tool that's going to help us understand exactly what's happening with this code. So let's open up a new tab, and we're going to manually navigate to my name, which is Stephen Greider, .github.io/JS Playgrounds. And do make sure that you get capital JSP Playgrounds in there. Also, do make sure that you're going to GitHub IO. And then I really have to say it as well, do double check the spelling on my name. It's very easy, I found, for people to misspell my name for whatever reason. Okay, so once we come here, we're going to get a little interface that's going to allow us to kind of do some quick prototyping of code. So essentially what it does is you can enter in some code on the left-hand side over here, and it will immediately print the result on the right-hand side. And so it's kind of like a REPL, but the benefit to this thing right here is that it prints out every single line of code that you add. So for example, if we say number equals 5, let's just stick with ES5 for right now. We'll say var number equals 5, and then we ask what number is. You see how it prints out 5? But if we then put out number plus 1, well, the first log right here is for this line, and then the second log right here is for the second line right here. And so we could also say your number is number, like so. And then I could go back and say change this number, and everything automatically updates. So essentially this is just kind of like a fancy REPL that we can use to explore some different snippets of code. Okay, so anyways, back on track, what we're attempting to do here is take that array of posts and massage it into an object. So I'm going to put down the list of posts as I expect it to come in from the API. So every post has an ID, and let's say that every post just has a title. So we'll say that first post has an ID of 4 and a title of hi. Second one has a ID of 25 and a title of bye. And then let's just do one more on here for completion's sake, and we'll give this one 36. How's it going? Okay, so now if I look at my list of posts, there it is right there. I've got an array, and inside that array is post number 1, post number 2, and post number 3. So again, the job or the goal that we have here is to turn this array of objects into an object itself. So a very simple, very straightforward thing that we're going to use from Lodash right here, we're going to say underscore, which is the Lodash library, dot map keys. So map keys right here is the little piece of magic that's going to make our life very straightforward, very easy. Do make sure that you have a capital K in there for keys. So the way that map keys works is we provide it a first argument of an array. So there's my list of posts right there. Then the second argument is going to be the property that we want to pull off of each object in here to use as the key on the resulting object. So if those words don't make sense, no problem. Essentially, we know that we want to use the ID as the key for every object inside of here. So we're going to pass in a string of ID. And I'm going to delete the intermediate console log right here of posts because it's just kind of confusing. So you can see what map keys produces. It made an object where the key is the ID of the post, and then the object itself is the whole entire post, still with the ID inside of it. So we've got a key of 4 that points at the post with the ID of 4. We've got a key of 25 that points at the post of 25, and a key of 36, which points at the post with ID 36. So now to go full circle, we'll say that maybe this is our state object right here. To go full circle, if I want to very quickly and very easily look up a particular post, as we're going to very shortly want to do, I could look at, say, state at 4. And ta-da, there's my post with ID 4. And so I didn't have to write a fancy for loop. I didn't have to use the array find helper, anything like that to find some particular record in here. I just have to do a very simple ID lookup. Okay, so that's essentially what we're going to use for managing our state inside of this reducer. It really just all comes down to that map keys function. That's the little piece of magic that makes our life very easy and very straightforward. So let's flip back to our reducer and add that code in. Back over here, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup on the code that we had inside that case statement. I'm going to make sure that I import Lodash at the top. So I'll import underscore from Lodash. I'm going to make sure that I've already got Lodash installed as an npm module. Yep, we've already got it, so we're good to go. So all we got to do in here is that we're going to say return map keys, take action.payload.data, and I want to pull off the ID property of every incoming post. Okay, so that's pretty much it to fetch our initial list of posts. So this is looking pretty good so far. Let's continue with some more implementation on the Redux side of things inside the next section.